The rain hammered against the palace windows that November evening. Inside the East Wing office, Robert Thornhill stood frozen, his hand still on the filing cabinet drawer. The royal guard had seen many things in his 15 years of service, but nothing like this. The document in his trembling fingers showed numbers that didn't match. Charity funds meant for sick children. Money raised in Princess Anne's name. All of it disappearing into accounts he'd never seen before. Robert's heart pounded in his chest. He knew what happened to people who discovered secrets in palaces. They disappeared from their posts. Sometimes they disappeared completely. The hallway outside was silent except for the ticking of an ancient clock. He had maybe 3 minutes before the security rotation brought someone past this door. 3 minutes to decide if he would be a coward or a hero. He thought of his daughter, Emma, 8 years old, fighting leukemia in a hospital across London. The same charity that was being robbed had helped pay for her treatment. Strangers had donated their hard-earned money, believing it would save children like Emma, and someone was stealing it. Robert's hands moved quickly now, his phone camera clicking silently as he photographed page after page. Account numbers, transfer dates, signatures he recognized. His military training kicked in, pushing down the fear. Focusing only on the mission, then he heard footsteps, heavy, confident. Coming closer, Robert slid the documents back into place, his breath caught in his throat. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. A shadow passed under the gap at the bottom. Someone was standing there, waiting, listening. 5 seconds passed like 5 hours. Then the footsteps moved on. Fading down the corridor, Robert exhaled slowly, his entire body shaking. He looked down at his phone. 47 photographs. Evidence of fraud that could shake the monarchy itself, but evidence that could also destroy his life. If you're moved by this story, subscribe to hear what happens next. Real courage happens in small moments like this. He slipped out of the office and walked calmly toward the guard station. Every muscle in his body screaming at him to run. Behind his professional expression, his mind raced through impossible choices. Who could he trust? Going to his superior officer felt like walking into a trap. These documents had signatures from people high up the chain of command. People who could make him vanish with a single phone call. But there was one person whose integrity had never been questioned. One member of the royal family known for her no-nonsense approach to duty and her fierce protection of charitable work. Princess Anne. The problem was reaching her. Royal guards didn't simply walk up to princesses and hand them evidence of criminal conspiracy. There were protocols, procedures, layers of staff designed to keep people exactly like Robert away from the inner circle. As he reached the guard station, his colleague James looked up from his newspaper. "You all right, Rob? You look like you've seen a ghost." Robert forced a smile. "Just tired. Long shift." James nodded and returned to his paper. Robert sat down, his phone burning in his pocket like a live grenade. Outside the windows, the rain continued to fall on the palace grounds. Somewhere in this massive building, someone was getting rich off the suffering of children, and somewhere else. Princess Anne was preparing for tomorrow's charity gala. Completely unaware that the foundation she'd worked decades to build was being hollowed out from the inside, Robert had until tomorrow night to decide. Stay silent and keep his job, his safety, his comfortable life, or step forward into the storm and risk everything for children he'd never meet. He touched his pocket where he kept Emma's photo. In it, she was smiling despite the tubes and wires. Fighting despite the odds. She hadn't chosen to be a coward, neither would he. But first, he needed a plan. And he needed to figure out exactly who was behind this scheme before they figured out. What he knew? The next morning arrived cold and gray. Robert had barely slept, spending the night studying the photographs on his phone. Tracing the money trail with growing horror, the funds weren't just disappearing. They were being funneled through 3 shell companies before landing in personal accounts. And the timing was deliberate. Always right after major fundraising events, when large amounts wouldn't be immediately missed. What chilled Robert most was the signature that appeared on every transfer authorization. Thomas Parker Bowles. Not a royal himself, but connected to the family through marriage. Someone with enough access to move freely through palace circles, but not enough scrutiny to raise questions. Robert remembered seeing Thomas at several charity events. Always smiling for cameras, always shaking hands with major donors. The perfect cover for a thief, but Thomas didn't work alone. The documents showed co-signatures from 2 financial advisors and someone in the palace administration office. A network of corruption that had probably been running for years. Robert's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Emma's treatment was scheduled for this afternoon. He felt his resolve harden into steel. These people were stealing from his daughter, from thousands of children fighting for their lives. At noon, put on his dress uniform for the charity gala preparation. The palace buzzed with activity as staff transformed the grand ballroom into an elegant venue. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above round tables draped in white linen. A stage was being set up for speeches and presentations. Princess Anne arrived at 2 o'clock, her presence commanding immediate respect. She moved through the preparations with practiced efficiency, checking every detail, speaking kindly but firmly to the nervous event coordinators. Robert watched from his post near the entrance. This was his chance, but he needed the right moment. Approaching her directly would raise immediate suspicion from the dozen people constantly surrounding her. Then Princess Anne did something unexpected. She walked toward the palace garden, alone, needing a moment of peace before the evening's demands. Her personal protection officer followed at a respectful distance, but protocol allowed for some privacy. Robert's heart hammered. This was it. He moved quickly but calmly across the grounds, intercepting her path near the rose garden. The protection officer tensed, stepping forward, but Robert raised his empty hands. Your Royal Highness, I apologize for the interruption. My name is Robert Thornhill, East Wing Security. I have urgent information about the Children's Charity Fund. Princess Anne stopped, her sharp eyes studying him. She had a reputation for reading people instantly, for knowing sincerity from manipulation. You have 30 seconds, she said calmly. Robert pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Last night I discovered financial irregularities in the charity accounts. Money is being stolen through shell companies. I have photographs of the documents. Children who need treatment are being robbed. The protection officer moved to intervene, but Princess Anne raised a hand, stopping him. She took Robert's phone, her expression unreadable as she scrolled through the images. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Robert could hear his own heartbeat, could feel his career and possibly his freedom hanging by a thread. Finally, Princess Anne looked up. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady as iron. How long have you known about this? Since last night, Your Royal Highness. I came to you first, because I didn't know who else to trust. She handed back his phone. You were right not to trust the usual channels. If what you've shown me is genuine, this conspiracy goes higher than you realize. She turned to her protection officer. Clear my schedule for the next hour. I need to make some calls. Discreetly. Then she looked back at Robert. You've just made yourself a target, Mr. Thornhill. People who steal from children's charities don't hesitate to destroy anyone who threatens their operation. Are you prepared for what comes next? Robert thought of Emma in her hospital bed. Yes, Your Royal Highness. Good. Because we're going to need proof that will stand up in court, not just photographs that could be disputed. That means we need the original documents. And we need them before tonight's gala, because I suspect once the event is over, evidence will start disappearing. She pulled out her own phone. I'm calling someone I trust completely. A former prosecutor who now works in the Lord Chamberlain's office. Between the three of us, we're going to set a trap. Robert felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. Princess Anne wasn't just taking him seriously. She was going to war. One more thing, she said, her voice softer now. Why did you risk everything to bring this to me? My daughter, ma'am? She's 8. She has leukemia. This charity helped save her life. I couldn't let them steal from other children like her. For the first time, Princess Anne's composure cracked slightly. Her eyes glistened. What's your daughter's name? Emma, Your Royal Highness. Then we're doing this for Emma, and for every child whose hope is being stolen by greedy men. She straightened her shoulders, the royal bearing returning. Go back to your post. Act normal. Tonight at the gala, you'll be reassigned to guard the office, where the documents are kept. When Thomas Parker Bowles makes his move, we'll be ready." Robert nodded, not trusting his voice. As he walked away, he realized he'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. By tomorrow, he'd either be a hero or a broken man. But at least Emma would know her father had tried to do the right thing. The hours before the gala crept by like days. Robert maintained his post, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. Every person who walked past felt like a potential threat. Every unexpected sound made his hand drift toward his radio. At 4 o'clock, his supervisor approached with new orders. "Thornhill, you're being reassigned for tonight. East Wing Office Security. The financial documents for the charity presentation need guarding during the gala. Apparently, someone high up requested extra security." Robert kept his face neutral. "Yes, sir." "Any particular concerns?" His supervisor shrugged. "Just following orders. Probably just protocol for such a high-profile event." As evening fell, Robert took his position outside the office, where he'd discovered the incriminating documents. The palace transformed around him. Guests began arriving in elegant gowns and tailored suits. Music drifted from the grand ballroom. Laughter and conversation echoed through marble halls, but Robert stood alone in a quiet corridor, waiting. Princess Anne had explained the plan during a brief, encrypted message sent through her trusted prosecutor friend. Thomas Parker Bowles had a pattern. At every major charity event, he accessed the financial office around 9 o'clock. During the main speeches, when everyone was distracted, he'd remove documents, alter records, ensure transfers were processed before anyone could question them. Tonight, he'd find something different waiting. At 8:30, Robert's radio crackled. Princess Anne's voice, calm and clear. "The speech is beginning. Everyone is in position." Robert clicked his acknowledgement. His palms were sweating despite the cool air. Somewhere in the ballroom, Princess Anne was delivering her annual address to donors, thanking them for their generosity, promising their money would change children's lives. The irony burned like acid at 8:50. Robert heard footsteps. He recognized the gate immediately. Thomas Parker Bowles was walking with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. Thomas rounded the corner and stopped when he saw Robert. "What are you doing here? Where's Jenkins?" "He's always on this post during galas." Robert kept his voice respectful. "Reassignment, sir. I was told this office needed additional security tonight." "What?" Thomas's eyes narrowed. Something in his expression shifted, a flicker of calculation crossing his features. "Additional security? That's unusual. Who gave that order?" "My supervisor, sir. I don't question orders." For a long moment, Thomas studied him. Robert forced himself to breathe normally to meet those suspicious eyes without flinching. Finally, Thomas smiled. "Of course." "Well, I need to retrieve some documents for the presentation. Financial reports Princess Anne will reference in her closing remarks. I'll need to see authorization, sir. My orders were to allow no one inside without proper clearance." The smile faded. "I'm Thomas Parker Bowles. I'm part of the royal family's extended circle. I don't need authorization to access charity documents I personally manage." "I understand, sir, but my orders were clear. No exceptions." Thomas's face reddened. "Do you know who you're speaking to? I could have you dismissed with one phone call." "That's your right, sir. But until that call is made, I follow my current orders." The tension crackled between them. Thomas pulled out his phone, his movements sharp with anger. He stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones to someone. Robert's radio remained silent. Princess Anne and her team were waiting, letting Thomas make his next move. 2 minutes later, Thomas returned, his expression cold. "My call was to Lord Ashworth and Palace Administration. Your supervisor will be receiving new orders shortly. You'll step aside, or you'll find yourself not only dismissed, but facing charges of insubordination." "I'll be happy to step aside once I receive those new orders through proper channels, sir." Thomas stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You're making a serious mistake, guard. People who interfere with palace business tend to have very short careers, sometimes very short lives. Before Robert could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? Both men turned. Princess Anne stood at the end of the corridor, flanked by two serious-looking individuals Robert didn't recognize. Her expression was ice. Thomas's demeanor changed instantly. Your Royal Highness? No problem at all. I was just explaining to this guard that I need access to the financial documents for your presentation. The presentation is over, Princess Anne said calmly. I gave my closing remarks 10 minutes ago. So why exactly do you need access to financial documents right now? Thomas faltered for just a second. I wanted to file the updated reports. For record keeping? At 9 o'clock at night? During a gala? Princess Anne's voice could have frozen fire. How dedicated of you. She gestured to the two people with her. Thomas, these are Detective Inspector Morrison and Prosecutor Williams from the Fraud Division. They have some questions about irregularities in the charity accounts. Irregularities that spanned the last 3 years. The color drained from Thomas's face. I don't know what you're talking about, and you won't mind answering their questions. Princess Anne nodded to Robert. Mr. Thornhill, please open the office. The detective needs to secure evidence. Thomas made a sudden movement, reaching for the office door himself, but Robert blocked his path. The desperation in Thomas's eyes confirmed everything. Step aside, Thomas shouted. You have no authority to hold me? Actually, Prosecutor Williams said calmly, producing a document. We have a warrant to search these premises and to detain you for questioning. You're not under arrest yet, but I strongly suggest you cooperate. What happened next occurred in seconds. Thomas lunged for the office door, shoving Robert hard, but Robert had been trained for this. He caught Thomas's arm, twisted, and in one smooth motion had him against the wall. Don't make this worse, Robert said quietly. Thomas struggled, then went limp, the fight draining out of him. You don't understand. I needed the money. Debts. They were going to kill me. So you stole from dying children? Princess Anne's voice shook with controlled fury. You stood beside me at fundraisers, smiled at parents desperate to save their children, and robbed them blind. Thomas looked up, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Your apology means nothing. Princess Anne turned to the detective. Take him. Get every name, every account, everyone involved. I want this corruption burned out completely. As they led Thomas away, his sobs echoing down the corridor, Princess Anne finally looked at Robert.
Did well.
Mr. Thornhill, better than well. Robert's legs felt weak. Is it over, Your Royal Highness? She shook her head slowly. This is just the beginning. The palace erupted into controlled chaos over the next 48 hours. While the media remained blissfully unaware inside those ancient walls, a quiet revolution was taking place. Robert had been moved to a secure location within the palace. His identity protected as the investigation widened. Thomas Parker Bowles had cracked under questioning, naming his accomplices in exchange for a reduced sentence. The web of corruption was even more extensive than anyone had imagined. 2 financial advisors, a palace administrator, a charity board member, and most shocking of all, a minor official in the Lord Chamberlain's office who had helped cover the tracks for years. 5. People had conspired to steal over £2 million from sick children. Princess Anne had taken personal command of the crisis. She canceled all public appearances, working 18-hour days with prosecutors and investigators. Her fury was legendary among those who witnessed it. One prosecutor later told Robert that he'd seen generals show less command presence, but it was what happened on the 3rd day that would change everything. Robert was reviewing documents in a conference room when Princess Anne entered, her expression grave. Mr. Thornhill, we have a problem. His stomach dropped. What kind of problem, Your Royal Highness? The kind that could destroy everything we've accomplished. She sat down across from him, looking more tired than he'd ever seen her. The palace communications office has gotten wind of the arrests. They want to bury the story, quietly remove the guilty parties, return the stolen money, and pretend none of this ever happened. Robert felt anger surge through him. They want to cover it up? After everything those people did? They're afraid of the scandal. Afraid of what it will do to the monarchy's reputation. They're arguing that a public trial will cause more harm than good. Princess Anne's hands clenched into fists. They're wrong. But they have powerful allies who want this to disappear. What about the children who were hurt? What about the donors who trusted us? Exactly. Princess Anne leaned forward, her eyes blazing with determination. Which is why I need your permission to do something that goes against every protocol I've been taught. Robert waited, his heart pounding. I want to go public. A press conference. Tomorrow, I'll announce what happened, take full responsibility for the oversight failure, name everyone involved, and promise complete transparency. But if I do this, your name will likely come out. The guard who discovered the fraud. You'll be in the spotlight, possibly for years. She paused, studying his face. Your daughter is sick. The media attention could be brutal. They might camp outside your home, follow you to the hospital. Emma's privacy, your family's peace, all of it could be destroyed. I have no right to ask this of you. But I'm asking anyway. Robert thought of Emma, of her brave smile despite the pain. Of all the other Emmas out there, children fighting for their lives while people got rich off their suffering. My daughter taught me what courage looks like, Your Royal Highness. She fights every single day for something I take for granted. Breathing. Living. If she can be that brave, so can I. He met Princess Anne's eyes. Do the press conference. Tell the truth. All of it. Relief and respect flooded her expression. Thank you. I promise you, I will do everything in my power to protect your family from the worst of it. And the next morning, the palace announced an emergency press conference. Journalists scrambled, speculation running wild. A royal scandal? An announcement about succession? The rumor mill went into overdrive. At 10 o'clock, Princess Anne walked into the press room alone. No handlers, no prepared statements read by spokespeople, just her, a microphone, and the truth. Good morning. I'm here to inform you of a serious fraud that has been committed against the Children's Medical Charity Fund, an organization I've led for 23 years. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. Princess Anne waited for silence, her expression stern. Over the past 4 years, approximately £2.3 million has been stolen from this charity by 5 individuals, including Thomas Parker Bowles, who some of you know through his family connections. The noise level doubled. Princess Anne raised her voice. These individuals have been arrested. Full cooperation is being provided to law enforcement. Every penny will be recovered and returned to the charity. Everyone involved will face prosecution. There will be no deals, no quiet resignations, no sweeping this under any royal rug. A reporter shouted, Your Royal Highness, how was this discovered? Princess Anne paused, and Robert, watching from a monitor in another room, held his breath. It was discovered by a palace security guard named Robert Thornhill, who risked his career, and possibly his safety, to bring this to my attention. Mr. Thornhill's 8-year-old daughter is a cancer patient. This charity helped save her life. He refused to let the people who helped his child be robbed by criminals. Robert felt tears burning his eyes. She'd honored him in front of the world. As for my own responsibility, Princess Anne continued, voice steady but heavy with emotion, I failed in my oversight. I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. I didn't implement sufficient safeguards. Children suffered because of my failure, and I will carry that burden for the rest of my life. The room had gone quiet now. Journalists stunned by the raw honesty, effective immediately. I'm implementing new transparency measures. All charity finances will be audited quarterly by an independent firm. All transactions over £5,000 will require multiple approvals. And most importantly, we're establishing a whistleblower protection program so that anyone who sees wrongdoing can report it without fear. She gripped the podium, her knuckles white. The people who donate to this charity are often not wealthy. They're ordinary families who give what they can because they believe it will help children fighting for their lives. They believed in me. They trusted me. That trust was violated, and I will spend however long it takes to earn it back." A reporter in the front row stood. "Your Royal Highness, there are calls for you to step down from the charity. Will you resign?" Princess Anne's eyes flashed. "No, I will not abandon this charity in its hour of crisis. I will not run from my responsibility. I will stay, I will fix what's broken, and I will personally ensure that every child who needs help receives it." The press conference continued for another hour. Princess Anne answered every question with unflinching honesty. She didn't deflect, didn't make excuses, didn't hide behind royal privilege. When it was finally over, she walked out of that room having changed the conversation forever. Not about protecting the monarchy's image, but about protecting children. The media storm that followed was unlike anything Robert had imagined. His phone rang constantly until he finally turned it off. News vans appeared on his street. Reporters knocked on his door at all hours. But something unexpected happened too. The public rallied within 24 hours of Princess Anne's press conference. Donations to the charity had increased by 300%. People weren't running away from the scandal. They were running toward it, inspired by the honesty and the promise of change. A GoFundMe appeared for Emma's continued treatment, created by strangers who'd heard her story. It raised £50,000 in 2 days. Robert wept when he saw it. Overwhelmed by the kindness of people he'd never meet, the hospital where Emma received treatment provided extra security, protecting her from intrusive cameras while still allowing the family some semblance of normalcy. Nurses who'd seen countless families struggle brought Robert coffee and sat with him during Emma's treatments, offering quiet support. "Your daughter is so proud of you," one nurse told him. "She tells everyone her daddy is a hero who helps sick kids." Robert smiled through his tears. "She's the hero. I just did what she would have done." Meanwhile, the legal machinery ground forward. Thomas Parker Bowles and his accomplices faced charges of fraud, embezzlement, and breach of trust. The evidence Robert had gathered, combined with the financial records seized during the investigation, built an unassailable case. But the real work was happening inside the palace. Where Princess Anne was rebuilding the charity from the ground up, she held town halls with donors, sitting in community centers and church halls, listening to their anger and their fears. She didn't send representatives. She went herself, facing people's questions and criticism with grace and humility. "How can we trust you again?" One elderly woman asked at a meeting in Manchester. "My grandson died waiting for treatment. What if that money had made the difference?" Princess Anne's composure cracked for just a moment. "I can't give you certainty. I can't promise I'm infallible. But I can promise you this. I will work every day for the rest of my life to honor your grandson's memory by making sure no other family is betrayed like yours was." The woman had tears streaming down her face. "Then I'll keep donating. But not because of your title, because you had the courage to tell the truth." Those meetings changed something fundamental. Princess Anne had always been respected, but now she was trusted in a deeper way. She'd shown vulnerability, admitted failure, and committed to doing better. In an age of carefully managed images, her authenticity was revolutionary. Robert watched these developments from his new position. After the initial storm, the palace had offered him a choice: return to his old job or accept a new role in the charity's security and compliance division. He'd chosen the latter. "Someone needs to make sure this never happens again," he'd told the HR director. "I want to be that someone." His new job involved implementing the whistleblower protection program, training staff to recognize financial irregularities, and working with auditors to establish robust safeguards. It wasn't glamorous work, but it mattered. 3 months after the scandal broke, Robert received an unexpected call. Princess Anne wanted to meet with him and Emma. They arrived at a small private office in the palace. Nothing grand or intimidating. Princess Anne greeted them warmly, immediately kneeling down to Emma's level. "Hello, Emma. I've heard so much about you." Emma, shy at first, clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. "You're a real princess?" "And you're a real warrior, I understand. Fighting very hard to get better." "Ah!" Emma nodded seriously. The medicine tastes yucky. But Daddy says brave people do hard things. Princess Anne smiled, but Robert saw tears in her eyes. Your daddy is very wise, and very brave himself. She stood, addressing both of them. Emma, I want you to know something. Because of what your father did, hundreds of other children are getting the medicine they need. Children just like you, fighting just as hard. He saved their lives. Emma looked up at Robert with such pride that his heart felt like it might burst. Princess Anne continued. I'm establishing a new scholarship fund in the charity. It's called the Emma Thornhill Courage Fund. It will help families with medical expenses. But it will also teach young people about integrity and speaking up when they see something wrong. Robert couldn't speak. Emma tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, why are you crying? Because I'm happy, sweetheart. Very, very happy. Princess Anne handed Emma a small box. This is for you. For being so brave during your treatment. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a charm in the shape of a rabbit. Her face lit up with joy. It's perfect. Thank you. As they prepared to leave, Princess Anne pulled Robert aside. How is she really doing? The new treatment is working. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. Robert's voice shook. We might actually beat this thing. Good, because I have plans that involve both of you. She smiled. I'm restructuring the charity board. I want people who understand what this work really means. People who've been in the trenches. Would you consider joining? Robert stared at her. Me. On the charity board? You've proven you have the integrity and the courage this organization needs. Your voice matters. These families' voices matter. She extended her hand. What do you say? Robert shook her hand, feeling the surreal nature of the moment. A year ago, he'd been a simple guard. Now he was being asked to help lead one of the country's most important charities. I'd be honored. Your Royal Highness? It's good, because we have a lot of work to do. As Robert and Emma left the palace that day, hand in hand, he realized something profound. The corruption he'd exposed had been terrible, a betrayal of trust that had hurt countless people. But it had also created an opportunity for something better to emerge. The charity was stronger now. More transparent, more accountable, more focused on the people it was meant to serve, and he'd played a part in that transformation, not by seeking glory or recognition, but by simply refusing to look away when he saw something wrong. Sometimes heroism wasn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it was about a father who loved his daughter, seeing other children who needed protection, and deciding that silence wasn't an option. 1 year later, the grand ballroom looked almost identical to that fateful night when everything changed. Crystal chandeliers sparkled. White linen covered elegant tables. Well-dressed donors mingled. Glasses of champagne in hand. But everything was different now. Robert stood near the entrance. Not as a guard, but as a board member, wearing a suit that still felt slightly uncomfortable. Emma sat at a table with her mother, healthy now, her cancer in remission. The medicine had worked. The prayers had been answered. She was going to live. The charity gala had been completely restructured. Every financial transaction was now displayed on screens around the room, updated in real time. Donors could see exactly where their money went, down to the penny. Transparency wasn't just a promise anymore. It was built into every system. Princess Anne took the stage to thunderous applause. She looked older, the stress of the past year evident in the lines around her eyes. But she also looked stronger, more purposeful. Good evening. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your continued faith in this charity. She paused, scanning the crowd. A year ago, I stood before cameras and admitted a terrible failure. People I trusted had betrayed that trust, stealing from the children we'd sworn to protect. The room was silent, everyone remembering that moment. I won't rehash that pain tonight, but I will tell you what we've built from those ashes. She gestured to the screens. Complete financial transparency. Independent quarterly audits. A whistleblower protection program that's already been adopted by 3 other major charities. And most importantly, A board that includes people who understand intimately what this work means. She smiled in Robert's direction. Robert Thornhill, would you please stand? Robert rose, his face flushing as applause filled the room. Emma clapped hardest of all, beaming with pride. Mr. Thornhill risked everything to expose corruption. He could have stayed silent, kept his job, avoided the spotlight, but he thought of his daughter and all the other children counting on us. He chose courage over comfort. Princess Anne's voice grew emotional. He chose them over himself. That's the spirit we're rebuilding this charity on. She invited Robert to join her on stage. His legs felt shaky as he walked up, still not quite believing this was his life now. I want to announce something, Princess Anne continued. Robert has proposed a new initiative, and the board has unanimously approved it. Starting next month, we're launching a program to hire people who've been directly affected by childhood illness. People who understand this fight personally. They'll work in compliance, in donor relations, in program development. Because the best way to prevent corruption is to have people who truly care at every level. All more applause. Robert took the microphone, his hands trembling. Oh. I'm not a fancy speaker, he began. I'm just a dad who loves his daughter. But I learned something this year. Good people staying quiet is how bad things happen. If you see something wrong, you have to speak up, even when it's scary, especially when it's scary. He looked at Emma, who gave him a thumbs up. My daughter is alive because of this charity. Because strangers donated money believing it would help kids they'd never meet. That kind of trust is sacred. We broke it, but we're earning it back. One transparent transaction at a time. One family helped at a time. One life saved at a time. The applause was deafening now. Robert stepped back, overwhelmed, as Princess Anne reclaimed the microphone. Before we continue with tonight's program, I want to share some numbers. In the past year, despite the scandal, donations have increased by 400%. We've helped 600 families with emergency medical expenses. We've funded 12 research projects into childhood diseases. And we've inspired 8 other charities to adopt similar transparency measures. She paused, her voice strengthening. The people who tried to destroy this charity failed. They failed because one person refused to be complicit. They failed because all of you chose to believe in our mission despite our mistakes. They failed because courage and integrity still matter in this world. The evening continued with speeches from families who'd been helped, from researchers whose work had been funded, from doctors who'd seen firsthand the difference the charity made. Each story was a reminder of why the fight had mattered. Why Robert's decision that rainy November night had been worth the risk. During dinner, a young woman approached Robert's table. She was maybe 25, with nervous energy and determined eyes. Mr. Thornhill, I'm Sarah. My brother died of leukemia 8 years ago. This charity couldn't help us then because the money had been stolen, though we didn't know that at the time. Her voice shook but held steady. I just wanted to say thank you. What you did won't bring my brother back, but it means other families won't go through what we did. That matters. It really matters. Robert stood, taking her hand. I'm so sorry about your brother. What was his name? Michael. He was 7. Michael's story matters, Sarah. His fight mattered. And I promise you, we're making sure it means something. She wiped her eyes and smiled. I know. I just applied for one of the new positions. In donor relations, I want to be part of making sure this never happens again, and I hope we'll be working together. As the gala wound down, Robert found himself on the palace balcony, looking out over London's glittering lights. Princess Anne joined him, 2 people who'd become unlikely partners in transformation. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Your life would have been simpler if you'd just walked away. And Robert thought about it, really thought about it. The media scrutiny had been brutal. The stress had been enormous. There had been moments when he'd questioned everything. No, he finally said, because Emma is alive. And because of what we did, hundreds of other kids have a chance to grow up too. How could I regret that? Princess Anne nodded. I've learned something from you, Mr. Thornhill. I was raised to protect the institution, to think about the monarchy's reputation above all else. But you reminded me what we're actually here for? Service. Real service. To real people, She turned to face him. Thank you for that reminder. And thank you for showing an old royal that courage doesn't require a title. You showed plenty of courage yourself, Your Royal Highness. You could have buried the scandal. Instead, you blew it wide open. We make a good team. She smiled. A palace guard and a princess. Not exactly a traditional partnership. The best things rarely are. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. Somewhere out there, children were sleeping in hospital beds, fighting battles most people couldn't imagine. Parents were sitting beside them, hoping and praying. Donors were deciding to give what they could, trusting that their money would truly help. And at the center of it all, a charity that had been broken was now stronger than ever. Built on a foundation of transparency, accountability, and genuine care for the people it served, Robert thought back to that rainy November night. To the moment he'd opened that filing cabinet and seen the evidence of corruption, he'd had a choice then. Stay silent or speak up. Safety or risk. Comfort or courage. He'd chosen courage, and that choice had rippled outward, creating changes he never could have imagined. Emma appeared in the doorway, tired but happy. Daddy, can we go home now? Robert scooped her up, this miracle child who'd survived against the odds. Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go home. As they left the palace that night, Robert realized something profound. Heroes weren't born. They were made in small moments of decision, and ordinary people chose to do the right thing despite their fear. He'd been afraid that November night, terrified actually, but he'd acted anyway, because his daughter had taught him that. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was loving something more than you feared the cost of protecting it, and in the end, that love had changed everything.